What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Beast for Build. The Huracan is home. In today's episode, we're going to go over kind of what stuff broke on our trip to SEMA and after SEMA, and how things are going right now, and what we got to do to prepare this thing for our dyno session coming up soon. Stay tuned. So our really big safety concern with this build so far has been the worry of fire. You guys remember the first time we took it out, we accidentally had an oil leak that has been fixed, and we've never had a problem with that, but we almost caught it on fire then. Then we had some really weird problems going on with the fuel tanks, and we actually had some fuel like back purge out of this cap, which is on incorrectly, don't worry about that. And then that almost spilled fuel onto our exhaust, which would have caught us on fire as well. So that's really been my big scare. And then the last day when we went to go ahead and either drive this thing to Disneyland, which we didn't end up doing, or get it on the trailer, I accidentally grounded out a wire that did not have a fuse in it, which I thought it did, and it lit the whole wire on fire inside the car and almost caught the car on fire again, which scared the crap out of me. So that's actually where we're gonna go ahead and get started today. We backed this thing in here a little bit too far to that side, and we need to go ahead and actually remove our driver's side seat and get in there, and I'll show you the wiring accident that we had and how we're going to fix it. So we're going to go ahead and move the car over a little bit, pop in there, and remove our driver's seat. All right, so we got the seat out now, and I just want to kind of show you guys what's going on. So our shifter, like right away at SEMA, here's a little in-camera SEMA footage. First thing we did was we just ripped the trim and the shifter boot out of here so we could actually see what shifts we were hitting. What's up, everybody? So the SEMA is now ended, essentially. It's 4 o'clock. We're allowed to start up the car, and this starts our journey from leaving SEMA and trying to test drive this thing all the way to Disneyland. Kind of proving out that it is a working car and everything like that. So let me show you some of the first things that I did already. Yeah, so unfortunately our shift knob, I want to give a huge shout out to Oscar's dad. Machined us this shift knob, and it's really great, but it's aluminum, which is really soft, and it's wanting to cross thread back on there. But anyway, so one of the first things we did is, SEMA's over, so we ripped the trim out of there, we ripped the padding out of there, that's gone, and shit, that's the only change we made. It's just for learning to drive this skated shifter, it was way better to be able to see it all the way. Oscar and Kyle, I actually have to do something with my family that's here in Vegas right now. So Oscar is gonna get to drive this thing to the hotel, which is gonna be really cool. I think it's time to fire it up. Let's switch our dash to a screen. This dash is so cool. This has now been officially released. It's no longer a prototype. This is available by Haltech. It's so killer. It's such a helpful thing. So we're going to be able to, once we turn our ECU on, so go ahead and Oscar flip that switch, it's going to tell us like, our battery voltage and all this other stuff. Well, as long as the car works. No, that's off. Oh. You got to go to on. Other way. There we go. So, we're reading battery voltage, fuel pumps just kicked on, all that good shit. So go ahead and fire it up. Fire it up. A little bit more. How badass is that? Small, really big problem. We've been having a few problems with the belt. We threw the belt when we redlined it for the gram. We just threw a belt. So right now, whatever battery power Oscar has, that's the power we have to get back to the hotel. Also means that we're not driving to Disneyland, so I don't know how much of an episode this was. With no alternator, we're not going to make it. So that's interesting and a huge problem, but we'll figure that out.
Buy a new battery.
Yeah, do a double charge. Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. As we were, driving out of SEMA, we let Oscar drive the car out of SEMA, and well, I'll get to this wire fire mess later, but let's start with one big thing that was, you know, wrong. It was just something that we didn't have time to test out, which is our seats. Now these seats are like premium quality built, really, really nice. Sparco hooked us up with them, so it was very, very nice of them. But the seat isn't a good match for a Huracan. So the seat is bolted as low down as you can possibly be, trying to get your butt all the way down there. Two small problems. One is it blocks our seatbelt entry, and the other one is just the way the seat is built. It's really built to have your shoulder in this bolstering right here. So when you sit in that, I'll try and show you here. So when my shoulder is really nice and tucked in here. Now, if I had an automatic car and my arm just needed to kind of go out straight and I was just hitting shifts, that would be perfect. Or if my shifter was like far away and down here, it still isn't the best angle, because anytime you're trying to go back, my shoulder is fighting this right here. Now you guys saw that our shifter location is pretty far back. I tested that against a stock Huracan seat and it was no problem. But when you have a seat with bolstering like this, it becomes a real problem. So what I was doing is I was kind of putting my shoulder over this part so I could hit the shifts down here. But then, well, and regardless of that, the way that this seat sits inside the car is I'm too high. So I was trying to kind of crane my neck down so I could see out the windshield nicely while also doing this. And that's how you got me, like the first time I was driving, I was looking a little silly like this. So that's something that we definitely have to fix like right away, because, you know, drag racing, we got to hit our shifts quickly and efficiently, and that's not going to work. So I'm either going to work with Sparco to get some of their SPX seats, which don't have this problem. I tested them out at SEMA actually. Or we can look at other seat alternatives. But they looked really, really good in the car. And do we have any other auto cars? The GTR. Ooh, they would look really nice in the GTR. I've been wanting to replace the seats in the GTR, so these may just actually go to the GTR. Oscar just mentioned about the Kirky seats, that may be a really good option too, so we're gonna go ahead and test those later because we have a set of those inside the Datsun. We also have more Sparcos that we could test as well. So with different seats, the shift location might not be an issue, but we've also been looking at this a lot more and looking at the fact that we don't need all of this stuff from here down. I'd really like to build something where I have mounting control of this, this, and this, and I build my own plate that kind of comes down and over and 3D print a really nice enclosure. And then we have all this space from here back to be able to change our shifter location if we want to move it forward. It's really, really no problem. It's just 4 bolts that go through the center console part right there if we want to change that. So that's something that's definitely been on my mind. But let's go back to the things that went really wrong at SEMA. So I'll try and go through this chronologically. First thing, our oil return line wasn't tightened down enough. Once we tightened that down, the car ran good, the oil burnt off, but then we had these weird gas problems. So what's probably happening is, if you guys remember, very late in the game, we installed this Venturi return system. So the fuel that's being returned, it's pumped out of the system, it comes back down here, and then there's a hose that connects that side of the tank with that side of the tank, and it's supposed to pull stuff over. And what we think is that there's a bit of blockage on this one as it's coming down into this tank. And if you have any back pressure, any blockage, it'll just take the path of least resistance and actually push the fuel over to there. One of the other big problems that we also had was venting. Our fuel vent caps were not taken off, which we didn't know. So that's what caused our weird fuel problem, our fuel cutout, our fuel spillage, and that's something that we're gonna have to fix, and to fix that we got to pull the engine out. So after I added a little bit more gas and we changed the venting caps, we were actually able to just drive right into SEMA, and we had the car in the booth and we thought everything was all hunky-dory. And so it's 4 o'clock on Friday, it's SEMA startup time, and we decided, like, let's rev the crap out of this, give the fans a show, show everybody what they want to see. And I redlined it inside the Garrett booth, and it threw our auxiliary belt off of the front of this. So that's why you guys might have seen videos of other YouTubers and stuff like that featuring us pushing the car through the traffic jam. It wasn't because the car broke, really. It was just we were trying to not waste any amount of juice that we had, so when we did drive by some fans or some, you know, people wanting to see the car, we could actually give them some revs and show them how the car works and stuff like that, without running out of battery. So once we got out of SEMA, we needed to get it loaded up onto the trailer, and that's where the nightmare really started to happen. Oscar stopped the car in a parking lot. We went to go get the trailer, then they wouldn't allow us to bring our trailer into the parking lot to load it up. So then Oscar, being crazy man he is, actually just decided, you know what, let's just fix the car here. So we sent Adrian down to the, or was it you that went to the auto parts store?
Adrian went there. I went to get the truck.
Kyle went to get the truck, Adrian went to the auto parts store and bought a new belt, Oscar jumped underneath the car in the middle of a random parking lot in Vegas and threw a new belt on. So we have a belt on the car right now, and eventually that led us to being able to drive to the casino where we valet parked it and let everybody, you know, public see the car, and then then that leads us to the wire fire. So the next morning, I'm, lightly hungover, whatever, jump in the car, I drive it down the street to where we're gonna load it into the trailer, and everything's going fine, and I was looking for my off switch. Now this is a last minute kill switch that we put in the car for safety. That controls the ECU on and off switch basically, and you're only really gonna see half of it here because the other half is in burnt crisps around the car. And what happened was I was fiddling with, this was literally done 10 minutes before we left for SEMA in the middle of the night. I was fiddling with this thing, trying to get it out from underneath my seat because I turned the car on and then I threw it under my seat. And what happened was I touched this red wire that had full voltage to the bottom of one of the seat rails, which is grounded out to the car. It completely ignited this wire all the way through here. You can see how little of it is even left, right through here and up into here into our wiring system. And that is a really, really scary thing because that whole thing was still arcing and bridging, and almost caught the car on fire. All it had to do was melt through this plastic and the carpet a little bit more and could have caught it on fire. So that's why we always have a fire extinguisher in our cars, anyone that we care about at least. And I yelled for Kyle, I disconnected power from the front, and we actually luckily did not catch the car on fire. We inhaled some really nasty fumes and everything like that, but that was it. So that was the last time that this car really ever turned on, because, well, yeah, we fried the wire that was able to send the signal to turn it on. So what we want to do today is start to look at and address some of those things that we've talked about, maybe test some different seating options, test some configuration that way, fix this wiring issue, see how badly the system is damaged. Get the car turned back on, rev the crap out of it, have a little bit of fun with it, see if we throw another fan belt or not, and then that'll kind of let us know where we sit better for being able to go to the dyno. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into fixing this wiring. While I do that, we've decided that for like all of our street test and tuning and stuff like that, like we don't need any of this body on here, and it's gonna be easy to access everything if we don't have it on here. So the guys are gonna go ahead and pull everything from the wide body kit, quarter panels, rear bumper off. We're gonna call this like Street Fighter mode, and and put the correct wheels. Those are our towing wheels. Go ahead and put all that stuff on so we're ready to hit the streets as soon as the car is ready. One last thing that did not go well. You guys know on BS for Build, I always say like we're gonna try stuff and be totally honest with you when it goes wrong. One thing that went really wrong with these 3D printed parts is I had to sand the bottom of this off to make it nice and level, matching the body kit. And when I did that, I sanded right through the carbon fiber into the plastic on the bottom. And then it did not take long in the California heat and then the following rain on the back of the trailer for this thing to not only just like look really bad up here and get all this weird fogginess and all this stuff going on here, but then it just bubbled right off. So that strategy that we used, and then sanding the bottom of it, definitely not a good way to do that. So we'll keep working on methods to make that work better. But for now, we're gonna take the body off and I'm gonna fix the wiring. All right, so I went ahead and turned the car back on. So this is a temporary fix to our wiring system. I guess I didn't really explain this, but what happened was right before SEMA, as we were totally running out of time, this whole system is meant to be powered by two really powerful relays that activate and deactivate the Lamborghini system, and then our own switch that turns all this stuff on. And what happened was that relay blew really late at the night, like midnight. So what we did was we kind of hardwired it. So you just plug the car on there, and then this turns the ECU on and off, which effectively will turn the engine off when we want it to. So now that I fixed that wire, the whole system is functioning. You can see our dash has got correct readings and everything like that. So we didn't fry the ECU or anything terrible like that, which is great engineering by our boys over at Haltech. So that's ready to go. I think we will go ahead and put our super wide tires on here, and we've decided we're going to leave the rear bumper on just because it looks cool. So we're just going to throw our wide body tires on here, and guess we're ready to fire it up. All right, we got our wheels on and everything's kind of ready in the back end. So we're almost ready to start up and do some tests, but I really have always wanted to play with launch control. So I actually got on the phone with the guys at Haltech, had them walk me through setting up launch control. It was like dead simple. So I set up a base for launch control, and then now we can play with it and change our timing and our fuel addition to see it shoot flames. Doing kid stuff on Lamborghinis. And while that's going on, I did remember another thing that I want to tell you guys about. Our brake booster didn't really seem to be working. Our brake, we have brakes, but it's just not really, doesn't have the right feel that it should be. So we're addressing the system. It's got an electronic brake boosting pump that's like an additive pump to help get you more pressure, because the vacuum line runs all the way back to the engine over there. So we're seeing if there's anything we can kind of connect for the time being to connect our line from the engine just directly into the brake booster, which definitely should work. That's how most cars work. All right, we totally reconfigured the way that we're pulling vacuum on the brake booster, and it looks like it's going to work now. It's just a straight traditional setup, engine to brake booster, so we're feeling good about that. Got our wiring redone, got our other stuff kind of reconfigured, fixed a couple small things. We're going to go ahead and turn it on now, and hopefully it'll run just like it did before. And then once we get up to temperature, we can hit that two-step. It's idling really well. We're now up to temperature, so we can now go ahead and just try and play with the two-step a little bit. Let's see what happens. All right, so I was actually just in the middle of filming there, telling you guys that it was heating up and it was idling just fine, and we were trying to get it up to temperature, and then it just did its thing where it cut out on us again. So we're trying to, right now, we're gonna actually lift that side of the car so it has a big tilt like this, and see if it's gonna push fuel from that tank cross over into this tank and let us, that's what the tank where our fuel pumps are, and if that helps us be able to prime. So when we were reading our fuel pressure gauge down there, we have no fuel pressure, but we can hear the pumps are running and everything's going. It's just we have no fuel pressure. So we're trying to troubleshoot this now. We know we got to pull the engine regardless, but just trying to figure out what it is before we pull it out. All right, Kyle's back with 5 gallons of fuel, so we're definitely going to be able to fuel this thing up if we need to. But while he was gone, Oscar and I were testing a lot of different stuff with the vents, and we realized that one of those vent lines was clogged from the fire, and that's a one-way, and then this one's a one-way, and that's an opening. So it's got a weird configuration going on from Lamborghini stuff. We don't know what it does, and what we're going to go ahead and do now is just run it just like it was, same configuration, see if opening up all those vents is going to solve any of our problems. We'll see how it goes. All right, we're gonna check if we ran out of fuel or if I just killed it. We don't know really what that was. We could have overfueled it with our two-step. All right, our fuel problem is still definitely a problem. It wasn't a vent thing that's gonna solve it. God, car's running so rich, it's tough in here. We're gonna go ahead and just brute force it, add a bunch of fuel. We're gonna throw in 5 gallons of fuel. That'll force fuel over into our primary fuel tank, and we'll just run it and get to play with this two-step a little bit, because we did verify it is working, which is gonna be fun. Well, we got the two-stepped on, right? So right now we're on our base tune, and that's a really rich tune. So it's actually like when you try and get there and you actually get into it, it starts to cut timing. And I don't know what it does with the fuel. I don't think it's making any fuel adjustments right now. But with it being so rich, like it's pretty fun. We got some cool pops out of it, but there's still like a lot more to come. We're gonna be able to do some really, really awesome stuff with this. But as you can see, we like ran out of gas once again. Obviously, we're not burning 5 gallons of fuel in like 35 seconds. So I think what's happening is we're just pushing all the fuel away from the fuel tank that we need into the other one, and that's a big problem. So that's an engine pull. Now we didn't throw our belt. We're gonna get under here real quick, double check and verify, but I'm pretty sure we didn't throw our fan belt this time.
There's no fan belt under there. Not quite sure what that puddle is over there, but there's no fan belt. Well, we don't have a fan, so it's more of our accessory belt. We'll just push the car by hand forward and see what that is. Oscar just checked, it said it's water.
There's a little puddle on top of the trans, so it's definitely coming out of there or there. Not a big deal, that's just our air to water intercooler setup. So tighten one of those things down and we'll be back in business. So for basically having, you know, assembled this whole thing overnight, you can see how much drywall is on the car right now because we literally blasted it off of the roof. Having done our quick assembly and everything like that, like things are gonna go wrong. So we really wanna do a lot of rewiring. We wanna modify that center console. We're gonna pull the engine and we're gonna change that stuff. And then we're gonna do a lot more shakedown and just be driving that stuff around, driving this car around town, making sure it's really good before we go to the dyno. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick update and let you see what everybody else kind of got to see at SEMA, was us breaking down because of this really bizarro fuel issue. So I've got some news for you guys as well. Today that this video airs is Thanksgiving. Between now and Cyber Monday, we're gonna go ahead and throw a sale on, like a Black Friday sale, but it's active right now. The links are gonna be in the description along with the promo codes. And we're gonna be doing like 20% off on our Teespring store, which is where they make it and they print it and they ship it out from there. But we also have a lot of stuff that's like in our personal warehouse, and we're gonna do some stuff as far as 50% off. So if you're interested in any BS for Build merch, guys, go check it out there. And I apologize, honestly, the video frequency hasn't been as much because I just got engaged and I really wanted to have some family time and hang out with Chelsea and stuff like that. But we are back on it now, full-time days out here playing with this car. And we're not gonna stop working on this build and move on to the next one until we have our successful dyno session. Then the game plan is I'm sending this thing to California so we can go head to head with Rob Dom. Hopefully his car will be done before then. And then it's going out to Florida to meet Cletus and see how that goes. So a lot of fun stuff coming up in the future for this build, and you'll see it in action. And that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!